Hello, Nimue Brown here, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Druidry and Midwinter. Most Druids tend to celebrate the winter solstice as opposed to the various other festivals that are available. Although, frankly, if you're inviting us to a party, we will tend to say yes. Excuse me, I'm full of traditional seasonal diseases as I do this. So, Midwinter for Druids tends to mean a ritual that focuses on the sunset and the end of the day. Now, one of the key things about this is that it is a very cold time to be outside doing the things. So I've stood in ritual at Stonehenge at sunset, at Midwinter, wishing I'd worn about 13 more pairs of socks and twice as much thermal underwear because, oh my god, standing about outside in the middle of winter can be so incredibly physically demanding. Younger me was considerably more up for this sort of thing at this point in my life. I find that experiencing nature in the form of chilblains and massive physical discomfort is not as appealing to me as it used to be. And if you're not somebody who enjoys outside at midwinter, I think there's everything to be said for finding other ways of doing this. I've celebrated all over the place. I've done mistletoe rituals, not actually at midwinter, but earlier in December, near the Severn, in an apple orchard. That was beautiful. I used to celebrate quite a lot in a community garden in Birmingham when I lived in the Midlands, and that was a nice space with shelter to fall back to. But even so, this time of year really quite tough, even with a fire, even with coats, to do an hour or two of outdoor ritual. I wouldn't do it now, quite simply. I don't do it now. I find it too much. I would rather focus on community and creativity at this time of year. I've become more interested in wassailing, and my local wassail happens in the street, but also happens in venues, which means that you can be warm and dry and physically comfortable, and I've come to value that tremendously. I'm taking a mumming side to my wassail in January, which I'm excited about. We've got an environmentally orientated play based on the traditional mumming form, and then we're going to sing a really silly wassail song, which I'm rather looking forward to. Death or Glory Wassail. If you want to look it up online, it is the best wassail song out there. So, ritual experience at this time of year, even when I was younger, healthier, tougher, and more up for getting out there in the elements, has never been easy. It's always felt like an act of more of sacrifice than a celebration, and putting my body into those spaces to honour the seasons, to connect with the land and the sun cycles and all the rest of it, has been important to me. But I can't say it's been fun. And actually, my most striking midwinter pagan experience was not in a ritual context. It was on the edge of a ritual experience. So I thought I would tell you about that because I think it's a good story. So it was back when I was living in the Midlands, and a group of us, Bards of the Lost Forest, had decided that we would do our midwinter ritual by meeting on the top of the Lickers and watching the sunset over Birmingham and sharing some mead and doing the things, and that we would ritual light because it was a cold winter and we knew it was going to be tough, and that none of us felt like standing still outside for an hour was any kind of good idea. I didn't have my own transport then, I still don't, so I went in on the train, walked up through the Lickers to the meeting point. Now, as I said, it was very cold. We had freezing fog, which is an unusual condition in the UK. Fog in winter, not so unusual. But this was the kind of temperature where the fog was freezing onto the trees and coating them in a thin layer of ice, which was incredibly beautiful. Very strange because it's not what we normally get around here. Very dramatic, So I was walking up through this woodland that was freezing down as I was walking through it, as we were coming towards twilight and the temperature falling, heading towards night, but just enough light left to sort of catch the frost and make it visible. It was a beautiful, strange, enchanted time, and because it was so cold and so foggy, there was almost nobody else in the woods, so it felt much wilder for that. It was actually an area where you'd normally expect a lot of dog walkers. And between the fog and the ice and the silence and the lack of people, it didn't feel like the landscape I was used to walking through. It felt otherworldly and strange and enchanted. And as I was coming to the top of the hill, there was a sound. And it was a low and weird and haunting sound that I had never heard before in my life, and I did not know what it signified. And it came several times. Somewhere behind me, somewhere from where I had already been. And I turned, looking around, trying to work out what I was hearing. And 2 wild ravens flew past me, low and calling, so I could not mistake either that they were ravens or that what I had heard was them. And I had never seen a raven in the wild before that point. I'd seen them at the Tower of London, and that had been it. And there they were, and I didn't even know that they were in area when this happened. So it was a word-stealing, breathtaking kind of moment of wildness and unrealness combined. It was beautiful and startling in a way that it is very hard to put into words, and I was deeply moved by it, and a profound sense of magic and wonder in that moment of the ravens passing me and calling and knowing their ravenness. Hairs will come up on my arms just thinking about this. It was beautiful. And they carried on, and I carried on. And I got to the top of the hill, and I found my fellow lost bards in the mist, and we shared mead. There was no way of telling when the sun was going to go down. We had to do it by watches because there was the heavy mist and we couldn't see anything. And the ritual itself, and it's not the first time this has happened to me, it was not by any stretch of the imagination the most powerful experience. It was nice to meet up with people and to share, but the real magic had been in the raven encounter. I like ritual for its community qualities. I like bringing people together. I like sharing. I like the opportunity to do the bardic stuff and to share inspiration and to make dedications and promises and boast about what we've done. I think in terms of community, ritual is a wonderful thing. But in terms of how I do the things that are most important to me, magically, spiritually, connecting with the land, connecting with the seasons, ritual doesn't really reliably give me that. But one of the things it does, of course, is gets people outside and means that there is an opportunity to have something happen, as with the raven experience. If I hadn't been going to a ritual, I wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't have been on the side of that hill that day, at that moment, in the ice and fog, to have that encounter with ravens. So, magic, it happens, but not always quite as we think it might.